Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Friday, December 13th, 2024. Friday the 13th, coming at you live from Florida Media here in Rockville Center. Got a surprise Friday night show coming up for you tonight. Peter Baugh of The Athletic will be joining us to talk Isles, Rangers, and everything else going on in the hockey world if we have time for it. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on the program. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me most of the time is Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how are you? I'm
doing great. It's Friday the 13th, so we killed Jake off. Also,
dead.
Thank God he's not here because I could not hear him talk and brag about Juan Soto going to the Mets.
Oh, yeah.
So thankfully he decided to.
For you, huh, buddy?
Thank God he stayed home.
Like 16-year-old me would have been upset.
But let's actually just talk about the Islanders. Let's
you sure?
Yeah,
you don't want to? No?
No, we're good.
All right, fair enough. All right, folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. Before we dive into the hockey talk, I want to remind you all about our wonderful sponsors, starting with the great Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Also proud to be sponsored by the brand new Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Islanders game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. And also happy to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. Also proud to be sponsored by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company and creator of the Diamond Air Blade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNINY10. And folks, if you are hanging out with us live and you want to get your questions in at the chat, type in questions brewing followed by your question, and we will address them during that segment. So the pleasantries now out of the way. It's time for Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience this past week. Stefen, so we did not have a show last week. We did a little Twitter space on Monday night to kind of fill the void there. We talked about what happened over the weekend. We can touch on that very briefly, but we do have some big news we want to talk about just in a moment. But we'll just chat on the fact real quick that they swept that weekend, got 4 points out of it, ends up being 3 out of 4 with the remainder of the week. We'll talk about those games in a bit, but let's talk about right now what happened today on the waiver wire. Pierre Engvall, Oliver Wahlstrom sent down because it looks like the Islanders have some troops ready to go.
Yeah, so Thursday's morning skate, we saw not only Duclair in a regular jersey, not only Adam Pelech in a regular jersey, but Matthew Barzal was back, not in a non-contact, in his first skate back, full regular jersey. He looked like himself.
Surprising.
He was practicing his celebration. He looked great. So it looked like whatever was ailing him is fixed now. With that, to activate them, the Islanders need to make cap space and roster space. And Pierre Engvall and Oliver Wahlstrom are going to get negative points from us. Because,
by default.
Well, honestly, Engvall has had his struggles. He was already on waivers to start the year. Comes up, has a couple of good games, but against the Kings, he had a situation where he got walked in the D zone, came up the ice, didn't crash the net. I thought Wild was going to lose his mind in that moment. He ends up playing most of the game, Engvall, because Horvat gets hurt. We'll get to that in a little bit. But unfortunately, Engvall's tryout while he was up failed. He didn't really win a job. He goes back down, and for Wahlstrom, he had been turning a page. We talked to him about it, his confidence. He looked better defensively. He scores a big goal against Carolina. It was a huge goal. And then he gets walked by Kevin Fiala, leading to that goal. And that pretty much was the last play maybe of him ever as a New York Islander. And both those guys go down. People are wondering why Hudson Fasching survived and those guys didn't. Well, Fasching's cap hit is $775. Engvall, they can bury 1.15. That's good. And then Wahlstrom's $1 million. So a lot of it had to do with cap, but also I think it's sending a message. These are two guys that you expected more from. Fasching, you know what you're going to get. It's consistently, he's going to go out there. He's going to show up for the 7-8 minutes he plays, do the little things. But for Engvall and Wahlstrom, they had a glorious chance to win jobs and really take advantage of that and push some other guys out. And they did not. And unfortunately, they're the ones that get cut.
Yeah, I mean, talk about Fasching, and even though he's had a little bit of a rough go, he's more suited for the role that's supposed to be there for these guys anyway, right? Wahlstrom, we keep talking about how he's kind of a square peg in a round hole, and it hasn't really worked out for him. And the guy has been around what feels like forever now. We keep, talking about his eulogy every year, and finally this might actually be it. Like, I think he's going to get claimed. I think somebody's going to take a flyer on him and see what happens. So this very well could be the end of the Wahlstrom era. You look at Engvall, nobody's picking him up.
And this is the problem. This is the problem with Engvall. One time getting waived to start the year, kicking the butt, sure.
Right.
He has 6 years left at $3 million annually. A buyout would be a 10-year buyout for him. Probably the only thing Islanders could do, there's three things. They buy him out, which again, not ideal, 10 years.
Sure.
They trade him and attach a pick, which we'll see what it has to be to get rid of him. Or number 3, they let him play in Bridgeport the rest of the year until he gets pissed off and he asks for a contract termination and goes and plays somewhere else. But it's not a great situation when you sign a guy that long. You expect him to be a difference maker, and for everyone says he's an AHL player. It's just false. He has the tools.
Right.
If he crashes the net and does what Waugh asks, he has the speed. He's effective. He just didn't bring it consistently, and unfortunately, the Islanders are in a spot where they're going to climb and get into a wild card spot, a point out, maybe get to third in the Metro. They need consistent guys playing, and he just wasn't it.
Yeah, so going into today, before the news broke, knowing that they were going to have to move somebody off the roster, was there anybody else you had in mind? Were you surprised by these two guys at all, or were you like, okay, this makes sense?
Well, I could have seen Fashion going down because he's not playing.
Yeah.
The fact that I wrote an article this morning, actually, that I had a stock who was rising, who was setting before roster moves. Obviously, a couple hours later, the story makes no sense anymore. You can check it out at the Hockey News.
There you go.
But Wahlstrom was one of the guys that I said I think he had just lost the spot because Engvall, he goes from the third line to the fourth line. Engvall's playing. Wahlstrom sat a lot yesterday. So I was like, you know what? Probably. And then Isaiah George is the other one, which I still think he's going to be sent down. They got to make room for Pelech. Dennis Cholowski, to me, solidified that final left side role.
Okay.
George is also waiver exempt.
Right.
And
makes it easier.
He makes more money than Cholowski and Hutton. He makes $838K, Cholowski and Hutton $775K.
Every
also,
cent counts.
Cholowski and Hutton would probably get claimed. Big body defenseman for Hutton, right side defenseman. And then Cholowski, a mobile defenseman who's looking more like the player that got drafted in the first round by the Red Wings. So I think you're going to see George between now and Sunday go down to make room. But yeah, I was shocked about Engvall because of what it means now. It's, you didn't have to first off put anyone on waivers today. They play at 3 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. So if you put them on waivers at 2 o'clock tomorrow, by 2 o'clock they're good. But I think they wanted to make sure it wasn't a crowded practice tomorrow and things like that. So yeah, I'm interested with the Engvall because I thought they would try to find a way to make the cap work. Varlamov on LTIR, Riley to LTIR, just figure out a way. But they said no.
Interesting. So now what begs the question is who is coming back on Sunday?
Right.
Now you see two forwards go down. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be Barzal and Duclair coming in on Sunday, right? Like you said, between now and Sunday, you might see a George get sent down as well. It seems to me that it might be Barzal and Pelech. Does that seem to be what it's looking like?
Yeah, when Pelech was back on the ice, jaw injury. So they're just waiting for him to be cleared for contact, and then he should be good to go. And the fact that he wasn't wearing a non-contact tells me he's ready. They weren't hitting each other in the practice, so I couldn't really tell how are they going to do after they get hit. But for Pelech, it was just time. He looks good. Barzal, again, too, wasn't a lower body injury. So he looked perfect. Like he looked like the guy that they expect him to be. One practice, sure. And Duclair's lower body, we think it was a groin, right? So they don't want to rush him back. I think 2 skates back. I think you want to see him take contact. I think that's the big thing. Then again, throwing him into a game against Chicago versus throwing him into a game against Carolina, I think Chicago probably is one of those easier games to ease into.
Sure.
But I think if 2/3 of them come back, it's going to be Barzal and Pelech.
Okay, that sounds about right to me, and it sounds like you already think George is going to be the guy that goes down the defensive side, because you can't have 8 defensemen, right?
Can't have 8, and for as good as George has been, the game against, was it L.A.? He struggled early. He sits the final 32-22. He goes from the first D pair with Dobson to Mayfield, and then his minutes, lowest he's played, I think, the entire year. And if he's going to be a limited minutes guy, 7D guy, let him go play in Bridgeport and play big minutes. He's still raw. He's going to be no question do I think that he's going to be a staple in this blend for years to come, but it doesn't have to happen right now, and Cholowski has played really well.
Yeah, for sure, and George has also shown some warts recently, maybe a little... 20 years old, a little tired there, getting all those minutes unexpectedly. And, I mean, just logistics-wise, like you were talking about, the fact that he's waiver exempt just makes it easy, right? Even if maybe Waugh sees more promise in him than Cholowski and Hutton, but Lou knows, hey, look, I can hang on to those guys. They're performing well enough. We can get George cooking a little bit in the AHL and bring him up if and when they need him later on. So that's probably what will happen there. So the next question is, if it is Barzal and Pelech, we'll assume that's the case, where do they slot in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's go into lineups, right? Well, I think for Pelech, I do believe he's going to go with Dobson. They had Cholowski with Dobson.
Yep.
Looking at that on paper, not the best defensive pairing in the league. Also, I don't think you want Cholowski playing big minutes, and you want a confident Dobson playing as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So I think you'll see Pelech with Dobson, Romanov with Pulak, Cholowski with Mayfield. Could those switch in games? 1,000%. Wall loves to do that. The forward lineup is where it gets a little tricky.
Yes.
The good thing is you have options, which maybe a couple weeks ago you're like, uh-oh, what are they going to do? Mm-hmm. So I think they're going to run Siplikov, Horvat, Barzal.
Okay.
I think Lee needs to play top 6 minutes because he's producing in those minutes.
Absolutely.
I think cutting his minutes would actually hurt the Islanders.
For sure.
So I think you'd go Lee, Nelson, Palmieri. Add more speed to the Duclair, Pajot, Holmstrom. And then your fourth line with Wahlstrom and Engvall gone is going to be Matt Martin, Kyle McLean, Casey Zizekas.
Okay, so you're even talking about with Duclair back.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
A little bit.
Duclair back.
That's
if
all right.
Duclair's not back, Fashing probably gets in there. Maybe they
Yeah.
put McLean on the wing or Zizekas on the wing. Mm-hmm. The bottom six is really interchangeable with that, but I think if Duclair is healthy and ready to go, I don't think you go back to Duclair, Horvat, Barzal. I like the way Siplikov plays, getting to the net. Duclair's a big body as well, but the confidence Siplikov has right now, he unlocked Horvat for a couple of games there, and then Horvat missed the final 9 the other day. He got slashed, so we'll see what happens if we get an update, but yeah, I just think Duclair being on your third line, forget what he was signed for, just makes his team so much deeper. And we've talked about Holmstrom too, his growth and confidence, him being on your third line with Pajot, who also looks really good offensively now, your third line could be a weapon.
I think we just need to see Holmstrom maintain that now because we've seen it in spurts before. Now let's see it stretched out over a longer period of time. And we're coming up against the gun here in the end of the segment here, so we got to dole out some kind of experience points. Obviously, we didn't really get to the games. The loss 3-1 against the Kings, terrible first period. They come back a little bit in the second and third. Unfortunately, not enough. I feel like they hung with them enough, and Sorokin had a great game. Couple of posts there in the end, had a chance to tie the game, didn't work out. Drop a home game to a good team in LA. Move to Thursday. You think it's going to be a blowout win. The Islanders hate winning games by more than a goal or two, and they decided to take their foot off the pedal. And we obviously heard about Waugh and the players, what they had to say about the fact that they essentially gave up on Sorokin there at the end.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give some experience points to Sorokin. We're going to go 7,000 because he played 7 straight games.
Okay,
and I'm going to dock 2,600 from Wahlstrom and 1,800 from Engvall because that's their number, and they got demoted.
Well done. Well done. I'm going to say minus 5,000 to the team overall for the third period and doing that to Sorokin. I mean, not only for your goalie, not only for yourselves, but for the fans too.
Right.
Show that you can close out a game.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
they won the game. They had enough goals to close it out and get the 2 points. But for crying out loud, that's an ugly way to win a game.
We'll get to more of this game after we get Peter on here. But that was a crazy ending for someone on deadline. Let me tell you.
Yes. So that'll do it for Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play. Food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. We're going to go to break, and we'll be right back.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program. Now joining us on the line, presented by Tovi Hockey, is Peter Baugh of The Athletic. And Peter, what is going on in Rangers land right now? Obviously, Islander fans are probably wondering why the Islanders are able to get really close to the Rangers in the standing. What's been going on this season with this team?
Yeah, it's been a really, really interesting year at Madison Square Garden. Essentially, I think the biggest issue, if you want to look at one, is kind of the performance of the team's veterans. A lot of them have taken a step back this year, and whether or not they're able to kind of regain their form will determine whether the Rangers get kind of their season back on track. But you look at Mika Zibanejad has had a rough start to the year, to say the least. Chris Kreider has only one assist this season, I believe. Even Adam Fox has been good instead of great. It's kind of like all of these guys that kind of were really amazing for the Rangers last year have kind of all collectively taken a step back, some bigger steps than others. Vincent Trocheck hasn't had a great start to the year. Artemi Panarin has been really, really good instead of super, super good. You know, like just everyone's a little bit below what they were last year, except, interestingly enough, a lot of the young players. Capo Caco's been good. Will Cooley's been excellent. Philip Hedl, when he's been healthy, has been really good. So there's a lot of things. Well, there's a few things that the Rangers can really like, and then there's a whole lot of concerns, especially with the older players.
Hey, Peter, how's it going? Sean here.
Good to see you, Sean. How are you?
You as well. So how hot is Peter Laviolette's seat right now? Is that a change that could happen if this team continues to struggle and maybe even finds himself out of a playoff spot? Do you see something like that happening? Or, obviously they unloaded a big salary in Trouba there. They signed Shesterkin. Do you think there's a big move coming for this franchise?
Yeah, I mean, I should preface this by saying that I don't think Peter Laviolette is at fault for what's gone on so far. I mean, I'm sure there are little things here and there he can do differently. There are quibbles I have with little decisions he makes, but I think that in general, the blame lays on kind of the roster itself. I don't, the sense I've had is that the team doesn't want to fire him. Like, I don't think that his seat is maybe super, super hot. But the thing is if the Rangers keep losing as they have a lot lately, they're eventually going to have to make a move, and GMs don't usually fire themselves. It's kind of right. The next domino to fall is interesting, and it might be Laviolette, it might be another trade, another move. And I do think, to answer the second part of your question, I do think more moves to the roster are coming, just given the amount of cap space that the team cleared up, given kind of the needs throughout the roster. There are definitely going to be more moves. I think you could see more roster players go out potentially. I don't know if I'm not like saying this with any certainty or whatever, but guys like Ryan Lindgren, Riley Smith, like if teams give the Rangers offers that make it worthwhile to listen to, like they're going to listen on guys like that and potentially try to upgrade. It is a big year for the team, considering this is the last year they have Shesterkin at a good contract number, and next year
right.
at close to doubles. But they're going to have to, they're not close to good enough right now, is I think the harsh reality for the Rangers.
You mentioned Trouba. We talked about Trouba, and it seemed like every other team would have leverage in a Trouba deal because he was making it really hard to move him. So the Ducks take him on, and they don't take on, the Rangers don't have to take on any salary. They get rid of all of it. Were you shocked by that?
I was a little surprised, but I actually, that element of it was less surprising to me than the fact that the Ducks gave a pick back to the Rangers. Because the way I looked at it is the Ducks, for them, like, the salary doesn't matter. They're way down on the, like they're not going to be close to a cap team this year and probably not next year either. So for them, like, the chance at getting a guy who maybe, I mean, the environment in New York clearly was weighing on Trouba. He was not in a position where I think he was feeling his best. So you kind of can take a gamble on a guy, hope that he refines his game a bit with a change of scenery. So from that perspective, given their financial flexibility, I understand why they didn't necessarily feel the need to have the Rangers retain. What I'm surprised is that they kind of gave the Rangers stuff back rather than like maybe they asked for a pick to for Trouba to not waive his or they offer a pick for the Rangers, or they ask for a pick back from the Rangers along with Trouba and whatnot. But I think there were multiple teams that were interested in Trouba, which kind of gave the Rangers a little leverage. And obviously they didn't get a huge return from him, and that's in large part probably because of the contract. But I think it is interesting that the Rangers were able to get out of the deal, I think, maybe easier than a lot of fans thought.
Yeah, for sure, Peter. And the fact that there was no salary retained was pretty amazing to me. But to swing it to the other New York team here, and the New York Islanders, and I guess the Sabres too, but
that's not doesn't count. That's Western New York. Doesn't
Long
count.
Island's team. What's your view of this team right now? They've been treading water ever since they had all those major injuries with Barzal, Pelech, Duclair, even Romanov going down for an extended period of time. They're still in the mix in the playoffs. They're right at the heels of the Rangers. They might have a chance here to move up the standings now, getting some guys healthy. We were talking about it before you came on. Looks like Barzal and Pelech are coming back on Sunday. What do you make of this team, and do they have a shot to make a bit of a challenge here now that they're getting healthy? And even though it hasn't been pretty in the least, they've been able to maintain their spot in the wild card race and bag some points, and maybe they can finally clean up their act getting these top players back.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll give a shout out. My colleague Arthur Staple did a good job kind of outlining the position the Islanders are in right now, and I think they certainly have a shot to remain in the race, in large part because the Eastern Conference, to me, just the kind of bottom part of it is really uninspiring. So the Islanders can kind of just, if they stick around and then eventually go on a little bit of a hot streak, then like they're going to be in the playoff mix. We saw that last year. They kind of hung around, and none of the other teams came out and grabbed it, so they stayed in the playoffs. And I could totally see that happening again this year. And I think you mentioned guys coming back from injury. Anders Lee, kind of the fact that he's had as good of a resurgence as he had has been huge. Dobson's kind of starting to find his game a little bit. Things are falling into place in some regards, and then in others, you're like, well, they almost blew a 4-goal lead to the worst team in the league last night. So it's kind of a weird balance there. So my view of the Islanders, which Arthur obviously is kind of the more boots on the ground guy with them between the two of us, but my view on them is I see them as a team that is totally a worthwhile, or like it's worth monitoring them for making the playoffs. I don't necessarily see a path to them having a deep playoff run, but I think they totally could make the playoffs, in large part because the East is just up for grabs, I think.
Yeah, you bring up the atrocity of last night's game, and you didn't cover Patrick Roy in Colorado, but obviously you covered the Avalanche. But when you listen back to his press conference last night and how angry he was, as an outsider watching that happen, is it enjoyable? Is it like, do you love to see that when coaches do that? You know, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I see things from the sports reporter lens, right? Like that's how I'm kind of trained to think. And when I see something like that, I'm like, man, that's gold. He just gives you like, if you're going back up to your computer to write about that after the game, it's like, it's great. You've got like this guy just kind of giving you everything that you could possibly want to write about, saying what's on his mind. I think the fact of a guy being willing to be honest publicly and candid, I think is all you can ask for in a coach. So I certainly watch that and I'm like, yeah, I want the coaches to kind of go up there and say what's actually on their mind and not what they think they should say. Whether or not that's the like wisest course of action at all times, like I don't know if it is. I didn't think it was a bad move last night for Watt, and I quite enjoyed kind of watching it. It was fun to hear him just kind of lay into his team after a win, and rightfully so. I think what he said was fair in a lot of regards.
For sure. And just speaking on the Metro in general here, we talk about how the Rangers are struggling, the Islanders are hanging in there. You look at the Washington Capitals right now towards the top of the division. Jersey looks like they're back. I like to focus in on the Caps here just because I think to me it was such a surprise out of the gate here, what a season they've had, and the fact that they've been able to maintain that with Ovechkin out. Do you think they're the real deal in the sense that, you know, they can hang on to this positioning in the division, or maybe this is something we see tailing off a little bit later on. I mean, we still haven't reached the halfway mark of the season, and I mean, for that matter, the Devils as well. They got out of the gate playing a little bit more, a few more games than everybody else out there. They're still hanging out towards the top end of the division here, but do they look like the cream of the crop there with Carolina?
Yeah, well, to start with Washington, I got a really good look at Washington last year in the playoffs because the Rangers played them in the first round, and I'll be honest, like, it was not an impressive team. But what did impress me was the fact that Spencer Carberry got them there. Like, that was not a good roster, and that was a young coach who came in and I thought did a really, really good job kind of getting the young guys involved. And I think that you're seeing that experience pay off. Like, Connor McMichael's had a good year this year. Like, they have all these young guys kind of rising to the occasion, and that's part of why they're so good. Plus, they've got Pierre-Luc Dubois, like, kind of having this resurgence and playing good two-way hockey in this role that he never kind of got settled in LA. And that trade looked like a bit of a risk given the term on the contract, and now it looks really wise. Like, if you can pay $8 million with the cap going up for a good two-way center who's still, I think he's only 25, like, that's not bad. So I think maybe if you had asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have been more skeptical about Washington, but the fact that they've been able to keep this up, without Ovechkin, makes me think that they're a legit threat in the East. I think that they're going to hit a rough skid at some point, like every team does. They're not going to be world beaters the entire season, but I think they're a good hockey team. And the Devils, who kind of the way it works is Art and I both do some Rangers, and he does a lot of Islanders, and I do some Devils here and there. And I've been around them a couple times in the past couple weeks, and I really like that roster. Like, I think if you look at all the three teams in the New York City area, I think that roster is by far the most complete. I think it's dynamic with the young talent. I think they can generate offense really well. And I think that they have shored up their defense a lot, kind of with the moves that they made in the offseason, as well as I think Sheldon Keefe's come in and done a good job getting some of the little details ironed out. And I think we'll continue to see them settle into a groove as Keefe the players get more used to him and the season goes on. So I'm pretty high on the Devils. I like the Capitals, and then the Hurricanes just kind of keep chugging along and are just, it doesn't matter how many guys go down. Rod Brind'Amour is going to have them playing hard, and we'll see if I have questions with them scoring in the playoffs. Like, we've seen kind of that stall out in the past few years. But like, they're going to finish near the top of the division. It's a tough division. Like, it's not like last year where there were kind of these three teams where it was the Rangers, it was really kind of like the Rangers and the Hurricanes were battling it out for the top spot. And then there was kind of a chasm between the Hurricanes and I guess the Isles finished third last year, and the Caps were fourth, if I'm not mistaken. But this year there's I look at it and there's three really good teams in the division.
Last one for me, Peter. If you had to take a guess right now, before the halfway point, a lot of time, are the Islanders playing playoff hockey?
Oof. I don't know. I always say, like, whenever I talk about them, I'm like, I just know that they're going to be they're going to finish the year with between the 7th and 10th best record in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to say no right now.
Uh-oh.
So don't get mad. But I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if we're going to get there and they're going to be in it. I'm just like looking at the teams from last year's playoffs, because I think Jersey takes a spot from the playoff teams last year. I know the Rangers are in a bit of a free fall right now, but I think they're going to stabilize at some point a little bit. Then you've got the Bruins, who, it's kind of like the Rangers and Bruins have maybe come back to earth, but I still kind of trust them to at least get to the playoffs. And that could leave the Islanders kind of on the outside looking in. But I will never, at this point, I will simply just never be surprised if the Islanders are in the playoffs, because it seems in recent years they just find their way in.
They always seem to find a way. And last one for me, I'm going to swing it real quick back to the Rangers. Just the numbers on the Shesterkin deal. Do you feel that was right? Just give me your opinion on the numbers that he got.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, if the Rangers wanted to stay a contender in the near future, which by all indications they do, they had to get this deal done. Yeah. And I think, frankly, like, from what my colleague Arthur reported about what he maybe could have gotten on the open market. Like, I think this was a pretty fair deal. Like, he's, in my opinion, the best player on the team. He's making 11.5 million, which is less than the highest paid player on the team. And I think as the cap continues to go up, that number is going to seem more and more reasonable. It certainly resets the goalie market, which I think is what Shesterkin wanted. But look, the Rangers without Shesterkin, their record would be not close to this good this year, because they got off to a good start. I think they were 12-4-1 to start the year. And I think a large part of that was the goaltending. And people just looked at the record and were like, oh, the Rangers are great again. They're doing really well. When there were a lot of holes that the goaltending was covering up. So he's vital to the team. I thought the contract was, I mean, obviously good for him because he gets $92 million. And I thought it was a perfectly reasonable price for the Rangers to pay.
Well, Peter, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time here on a Friday night. Enjoy the rest of that Friday night, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, you guys.
You got it.
Thanks,
all right,
Peter.
folks. That was Peter Baugh of The Athletic joining us for a little Isles, Rangers, and NHL at large. So that'll do it for On the Line, brought to you by Tovey Hockey. And now Stefen's going to tell you a little more about Tovey Hockey.
A little more about Tovey Hockey. The innovative hockey technology company is the creator of the 100% solid carbon fiber Diamond Air blade, the only other NHL-approved braid technology. With superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro-grip blade texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic cross-beam construction, and unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot, Tovey Hockey is changing the game by making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to ToveyHockey.com to check out their great selections of sticks, gear, apparel, and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. Tovey Hockey. Stronger, faster, superior.
That was fantastic, Steph.
That wasn't superior?
Superior in every way,
Thank you.
actually. No question about it. Well, that'll do it once again for On the Line. We're going to take one more break. Then we're going to roll on in to What's on Tap.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow @HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York. The best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. The train rolls on right into Center Station, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill right here in Rockville Center. And we got a few games on tap for you, starting with Sunday. The Islanders are not done with the Blackhawks yet. Back-to-back, couple days off here, but they go into Chicago. You'll be there.
We'll be there.
To potentially close out a season sweep if they can find a way to score more goals than the Hawks again. But, you know, it'd be nice if they could just keep them at bay if they do get ahead in the third period. Jeez.
Yeah, a win would be great. 2 points. Listen, 2 points is 2 points.
Yeah.
You got to find a way.
Heard that a lot last night.
Ideally, hopefully, 1, 2, or 3 players come back from injury.
Yeah.
They dominate against Chicago. Also, Matthew Barzal and Bedard are really close. We've talked about it on the show, I think, a little bit. I'll just throw people in.
Yeah.
I talked to Barzal about it a couple years ago when Bedard broke in. When they were about 18 or 19 years old, maybe 20, they were skating back home in Vancouver, and this young 13-year-old came on the ice and just dominated them. And it was ridiculous. They've been friends for a really long time. They really value each other, and kind of Barzal's like the big brother for Bedard.
Sure.
So they're really close. But also, Frank Nazar was just called up, and Blackhawks top prospect dominating the AHL. But there's an Islander connection here.
Okay.
Let's take it back to summer of 2022.
So long ago.
NHL draft in Montreal.
Yeah.
Yes, in Montreal. The Islanders traded the 13th overall pick to the Montreal Canadiens and another pick for Alexander Romanov.
Right.
Montreal took that pick, flipped it to the Chicago Blackhawks to get Kirby Dach.
Sure.
The Blackhawks draft Frank Nazar. The Islanders, with the pick that they got in the 4th round from Montreal, they drafted Isaiah George.
How about that?
So the Islanders will be the first time the Islanders face Nazar. Maybe Romanov will level him. Every game, Romanov's decided to level one person.
Yes,
maybe
that's true.
Nazar will be his next victim. But yeah, there is an Islander connection there. But the Islanders have to take care of business. Clearly, they could score. They scored 3 goals in 2:17. I mean, they allowed.
That was fun.
They might have allowed 3 goals in 2:17.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, you got to go into Chicago and just. You have to get up to that lead again, 4 or 5 goals, and you just have to continue to blow them out. Because if they sit back again, I don't know what's going to happen with this roster because it was flat out unacceptable. That's one of those convos. Like if you're a parent and yell at your kid, or a teacher yells at their student, like you never want to see that ever happen again.
Right.
And if it happens again, that means you don't respect the person.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I was watching the post game afterwards, and Clutterbuck, Hickey, and Shannon Hogan were talking about all that, and Clutterbuck mentioned, hey, maybe this is a good thing.
Right.
Maybe it's a good thing that happened to kind of keep their heads in the right place, right? Maybe they get a little too high, saying, we beat them 5-1 the other night, we can coast through this night. I mean, they're professionals; they shouldn't be doing that anyway. Right. They have plenty of veterans on the team. You show up and play the same game no matter what, but. Maybe this puts them on alert a little bit. Maybe it kind of humbles them even more than they've been humbled this season already to say, all right, we're not out of the woods yet as far as blowing leads, just learning how to close out games, right? So maybe that kind of keeps them on their toes a little bit. Fast forward to the third period Sunday night, assuming that they do have a lead, assuming that they are ahead, and maybe they have a little more of a killer instinct to close out the game. Or it could go the other way, and they're fragile, and they cough up another
they should
lead.
allow the first goal and then come back.
Well, that's what they've been doing great at. This past little stretch here, they've been giving up that first goal, and they play from behind. They end up coming back, taking over, and maybe there's just not enough time to blow the lead and give the game up, right? But, more realistically, this is just something that they have to figure out. I mean, we're over 30 games into the season now. They got to put a cap on it. You can laugh a little more about it because they still got the 2 points in regulation the other night, but that's also against Chicago. That might not have happened another night against another team. And Hickey mentioned this too. It was such a calling back to what happened against San Jose a year ago with Anthony Duclair on that team, if I remember correctly. Anthony scored
in that game. He was the best player in that game. And I got famous that night on Spinning Chicklets because I asked the question, which was not related to Lambert's answer at all.
Okay.
I said, I forgot what I asked. I think maybe like taking the positive out of the game because they had played so well. And Lane said, this is a sin.
Oh, that's right. That was the game. Right.
But Spinning Chicklets put the question in. So I got to be on Spinning Chicklets.
Look at you, buddy.
The last thing I'll say about the game last night in Chicago is that I know this is crazy to say, but I think if it was 3-1, I think the Islanders win the game 3-1. They got complacent. Like everyone could say, well,
or they lose 4-3.
Right. I think not an excuse, unacceptable behavior. Yeah. But I think if they're up 3-1, they're not taking their foot off the gas the way they clearly stopped playing.
Right.
Outside of Sorokin. But we have another game to get to as well.
Yes, we do. Tuesday, go into Carolina. That's going to be a tough one.
They just beat Carolina.
They did, and they beat them at home, but I feel like that is an L this week. We'll get to the predictions for the week, but I'm already saying it. I think that game against Carolina, that's an L right off the bat.
It's a chance to go into Carolina for the first time since getting eliminated after they blew a lead in that game, remember? They blew a lead in that, and to go back there and make a statement, we always talk about, what happens on Sunday. Like, if they beat Chicago, that's 4-5 they've won?
Yeah.
So that's a huge opportunity.
Sure.
And again, you're not playing that many games. You're off until Saturday again to face Toronto after that. So you have a lot of time off. You don't want to sit on a loss. But there's no such thing as moral victories. They can go and play a great game and still lose. Carolina's a very good team. However, I'm curious to see, if healthy, how the power play looks against a Carolina team because power play and penalty kill is what killed them in the playoffs. Getting guys back healthy, that's the biggest thing you have to see when these guys come back is, yes, 5-on-5's got to be good. You think they'll take less penalties or be in less crappy spots with the penalty kill because they'll have more possession. Like Barzal and Duclair should have the puck more on their stick, which means they're not chasing as much, which means they're not taking as many penalties. Ideally, and maybe they score a power play goal against Chicago to get the ball rolling. But against Carolina, 6 trips to the penalty box, you're losing that game. Getting 4 or 5 power plays and not scoring any of them. You might win the game 5-on-5. The Islanders won that series 5-on-5. They just lost. So this is a chance to really, especially with the 2 guys going on waivers, getting guys back. All the players talk about how much they're amped and hyped to get these guys back.
Yep.
But if they get these guys back and fall flat on their face 2 games into having them back, what's the outlook now?
For sure. I'll tell you what, I will be impressed if they win that game in Carolina on Tuesday.
You know what's going to happen, right?
Tell me.
They'll lose to Chicago, beat Carolina.
They do that a lot.
Yeah.
You might be right.
Yeah.
One more. Saturday, December 21st, the Islanders go into Toronto, the beloved Maple Leafs, as Islander fans happen to love. 7 p.m. start there. That's always a fun one when the Islanders go up into Toronto. They seem to do well up there. I mean, obviously, Toronto's still one of the top teams in the league, one of the most offensively gifted teams in the league, at least. New coach up there in Berube. What do you see in that game? Barzal
takeover game. If Barzal is back, that's a statement. He loves to dominate the Leafs. Also, Stolarz got hurt. He's getting evaluated. I'm assuming Wall will start that game. But, yeah, Toronto's a very good team. They're a very physical team now. We'll see if Ryan Reeves in the lineup. You could probably get him to take a bad penalty or something.
Sure.
For the Islanders' sake, hopefully it's not killing someone coming around the net, because that's the last thing they could afford. But the Leafs are a tough team. This is, again, building on the Carolina game. Depending on what happens in that game, you make a statement and find a way to beat Carolina with a healthy squad. The internal confidence is sky high, and that's a scary thing. A team that's confident, forget it where they are in the standings. If the Chicago Blackhawks won 10 straight on their new head coach and we're still in the basement, that's a very dangerous team to play against. For the Islanders, they're like wishy-washy. No one really knows what they're going to get. They've struggled a lot this year. It's hard to defend against when you don't know, and especially guys back healthy. As much as it sucked that they were all out, they're not tired as much. These guys are well rested. You might think they get their legs into them a couple of games and go into Toronto, but yeah, this is going to be I feel like a grinding physical game. Your talented players have to step up.
Yeah, for sure. I guess you just have to wonder how long it's going to take for these guys coming back to gel. Are they going to fit in right away? You talk about the special teams, right? Do they need a couple of practices, a couple of games to get it going on the power play with Barzal in there, likely Duclair in there, right? Do they try a guy like Barzal or Duclair on the penalty kill, since that's been miserable anyway?
I would.
I agree. Get some speed in there. Get a little offensive threat in there. Why not?
Forecheck, speed, pressure.
Yeah. I've been preaching that. Pressure, pressure, pressure. We'll see, though. We'll see what the powers that be behind the bench decide. But that will do it for What's on Tap. Presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food, drinks, Islander games, and live events at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. Now we move it on to Hero of the Week. That's where Stefen and I like to choose two players or personalities within the Islanders that did something heroic. So, Stefen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm going with Patrick Waugh. He's a goalie. I'm a goalie.
He was a goalie.
He was a really good goalie. I was
pretty good.
I played roller hockey pickup. But last night after the game, first off, Ilya Sorokin is not like Igor Shesterkin where he's ever going to show up his team. That's just the kind of personality he is. But watching what they did to him,
I think you just said Ilya Shesterkin.
Did I?
I think so.
Oh, let's rewind. Cut that.
I was
Ilya Sorokin's not going to show up his team. We've seen Igor do it after games when they allow bad goals or whatever. And what he went through last night to not flip the you-know-what
right
showed his character.
He's a calm dude, yeah.
Patrick Waugh had his goalies back last night, and he made a huge statement to the fact that he wanted his team to feel so badly what they did to Sorokin and essentially wake the F up. That's pretty much what he was saying is, this can't happen again. Ilya Sorokin, when you guys stop playing or when you guys struggle, Ilya never stops working hard to get wins and make those key saves. And how dare you ever do that to him? So Here's the audio from last night on Patrick Waugh defending his goalie to his team.
A win is a win, and we played to win games. But I guess times has changed. Because in my days, if my team would have done that to me, I will break a stick in that room. I'll be very upset to see my team playing like this in front of me. Ilya is a gentleman. He's a first-class person. But that was unacceptable. We didn't compete. We didn't battle in front of the net in the last 8 minutes. That's unacceptable. We talked about it this morning to be stronger. Our goalie deserves more respect than this from ourselves. But say it's this, the rest, we did a lot of good things. Even if even if the first was not our best, we had a really good second period. We had a great start of the third, and we find ways to put pucks behind the net, which was we play for.
So it was important for him to say that because Sorokin's not going to.
Right.
And that's not a knock on Sorokin. Some goalies handle it differently.
He's a mild-mannered dude.
But Waugh needed his team to know that they let their goalie down, a guy that never, even when Sorokin has bad games, it's never a lack of effort. And when you stop a goalie like that, who's playing out of his mind, by the way, in the game, it wasn't like the Islanders allowed 5 or 6 shots on goal and Sorokin, he had to make big saves. keep him in that game to allow them to get up to that lead. I mean, that breakaway save on Craig Smith in the opening minute or two of the second period when it was 1-1, or excuse me, it was 1-0 at that point. They were losing that game.
Right.
So without Sorokin, they don't have the chance to go up 5-1, and it was unacceptable. And he's my hero because he was Sorokin's hero yesterday.
No, I think that's a good choice. I think the one potential inaccuracy about that quote, though, was that back in his day, I don't know if Waugh would have waited till he got to
he's
the
breaking
locker
that
room to break his stick. He probably would have done it either on the crossbar or the bench.
Defenseman's head.
Maybe that's assault, but maybe.
Well, I mean,
possibly.
Yeah, no felonies.
So moving on to my hero, I am going with JG Pageau. Guy's been playing excellent lately. I think right now he is 6th overall in points. Let's see here. I have some notes. He's halfway already to last season's 33 points. He's at 58.8 in the circle right now on the faceoff dot. That is the highest number compared to any number he had previously. So he's doing great in the faceoff circle. 6 goals, 10 assists for 16 points. He's another guy who's been picking up the slack with those guys being out. Barzal, Duclair. I think I mentioned already, 3 assists versus the Hawks. He set up Baugh for that beautiful goal from the side there. So, and he was also 1, 2, and 3 against Carolina. So this is a guy who's been stepping up lately. I think he's been playing really well. And another reason why this team has been treading water, waiting for those guys to come back. So JG Pageau, that's my guy.
And I think it shows that when you put talent on his wings and you don't rotate his lines every 10, 15 games where, he's playing on the top line for a little bit. Then he was playing on the wing there, third line, but he's a guy that got his offense back. This is a guy that he was a top 6 forward on Ottawa, top line forward. Again, they were a struggling team. It wasn't that he was the best player on the team, but he got, his offense was pretty much hidden when he came over here because Trotz said, listen, you're a really good defending center that could play defensive. And he just pretty much became that guy, and the offense went away. He has been unlocked a little bit, and the Islanders needed depth scoring. It was a huge thing. And then when they do get healthy now, if he's still being able to do this as a third-line center, just makes his team so much more dynamic.
Yeah, now look, he very well could have his minutes reduced a bit now with these other guys coming back, but right now he's on pace for approximately 45 points, which would be great out of your third-line center. But it's great to see, and it's good to know that he's still got it, right? It's almost like another way of looking at Anders Lee too, right? Like it's kind of obviously to a lesser degree, but this is a guy who, just like Lee, fans and media alike were questioning whether he still had his game or if he was aging out or or the injuries just became too much, right? And it just wasn't going to be enough for him. But this is a guy who's having a bounce back year for a guy at his level, and hopefully that's something he's able to maintain to a good degree, even with these other guys coming back.
Yeah, great point.
So there you go. That will do it for Hero of the Week. And now I will tell you all about Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. With that out of the way, now we will go into Questions Brewing because Jake's not here for the den.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Welcome to the Snake Den.
Yeah, missed that. Yeah, Jake couldn't be with us tonight, so
someone CGS just said Snake Den time.
We will not be invading the Snake Den. Unfortunately, he had other obligations on this Friday night. The nerve of him having plans on a Friday night as a young buck in Jake the Snake. Now we'll give him a pass on that, but we are happy to enter Questions Brewing. Ed, Jay, how you all doing?
We're just looking up UFO videos back here.
What can you explain this?
We're in the tinfoil hats back here.
What is this drone thing going on, by the way? Do we know?
They're in Oceanside now.
No, but who is they? Who is controlling these drones?
Stefen, if I knew the answer,
maybe it's Jake.
I think...
Yeah, maybe it's Jake.
Maybe it's Jake.
Have you seen the drones and Jake in the same room?
Wow, that's a great question.
I know.
Wow.
Get to the good
I can't
ones.
answer that. Anyway,
there.
Before we're kicking off, before I read this guy's name, you're not fooling anybody, especially not me with this name, but I'm reading the full name out of respect from Ray Charound on YouTube.
Okay.
He asks, which Islander has the best 80s movie bully name, and why is it Dennis Chalowski?
That is an outstanding question. I think you probably answered it for us already. Greatest 80s, 90s bully name. Chalowski's a good one. I don't know if
Dennis
anybody
Chalowski.
else.
I
mean, Cal Clutterbuck would have been a good one.
That's a good one.
But like, you had to go full name, like Pascal Clutterbuck.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Anyway, moving on from that, I just love that question.
Yeah.
You love that username. Forget the question.
Yeah, Ray, I see you. DTMR asks, is it me or does Pelech look tired look like he's playing tired?
I think there's some plays. I mean, he went for that behind the back pass last night. I think the minutes are getting to him. He's played a lot. I don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure on him personally with so many guys out, with Pelech out, with Riley out. He's been with Roman up, but there was times he was George. And yeah, he looks a little fatigued out there. I think getting Pelech back to eat some minutes. I know they play opposite sides, but that'll take some PK pressure off him. He's been playing on the power play as well.
Right.
So I think the minutes have certainly got to him.
Agree.
Yeah. Next up from State of Survival, he asks, Siplikov is our best player. He brings it every night. What's his next contract look like? Does he walk?
Well, he can't walk because in RFA. Unless he really wanted to get out of it and get traded. But yeah, his next contract, if the Islanders were smart, he's 26. I would sign him to a 5-year deal at around $6 million. I know that seems like a lot, but I think, well, the thing about it, the cap's going up exponentially. So a $6 million deal right now isn't in a couple of years, it'll be a steal. And if he's going to produce, he's just getting ready and comfortable in the NHL right now. We haven't seen the goal totals, but I think once the league figures out that he's a playmaker, they're going to block the pass. He's going to shoot more. I think this guy has potential to be a 30-goal scorer in this league. And I would just lock him up now before the cap continues to rise exponentially, where in a year or two you're paying him 7.5. So I think he's really good. This is a guy that very skilled, very big, can play on power play, can probably play on the penalty kill, has the playmaking ability of a centerman. He might be able to play center. I got to ask him. He just does everything, and the confidence is just he just gets more and more. Like that's why I said him and Horvat, because when Horvat was struggling and it was hard to watch because he had so many chances, and Siplikov said, "I got you," and made him look better. Every line Siplikov gets on, that line is the best line of the night, and I don't think it's gonna get worse. I mean, he's older; he's not 21 years old, but at 26, I think I would lock him up.
No, listen, I said on the space Monday night, I am fully on the Siplikov bandwagon for sure. I think he has been outstanding. I've been so impressed. The fact that he's acclimated himself in such short order has been super impressive. And just like you said, he's been able to adapt up and down the lineup and make his line mates look better. That said, we still got 50 games to go.
I was going to say, obviously, the contract's not going to come. I mean, if the Islanders are smart, they already locked him up to like 1 million, 1.5. I mean, right now he's making nothing. Ideally, that like Fashion got that, McLean got that. They get their deals locked up for 3 or 4 year deals before they have those big explosions, right? And obviously, McLean and Fashion are much different players, but I don't know. Given what the market is for a guy that could do 25, which he probably can, maybe more, I would just get it under and lock him up now before he really explodes.
Yeah, I think the fact that they still have him under the organization's thumb, so to speak, and the fact that he's an RFA, I think that gives him a little leverage there. And, I think you feel good about giving him maybe around 4.5 if his production continues. I mean, look, if he just goes off for the rest of the season, then pay the man. Absolutely.
I think if he does play with Horvat and Barzal, he could have a big second half.
Absolutely. But I love what I've seen so far. I was surprised to hear $6 million, but if he earns it, sure, why not?
Yeah. Next up from Sloppy Tuna, seeing more and more mock trades featuring Brock Nelson. Does he end this year with the Isles?
Oof. No, I don't think so.
Damn.
I think there's a lot of teams. I know someone reported the other day there was a couple of teams that were interested in him. Every team should be interested in him. Goal scorer. I just think if they could get a couple of picks, maybe a first-round pick and a prospect, depends how crazy it is at the deadline, but the Islanders might be within striking distance, but because of how much they can get back for him, because teams are going to be going nuts for a guy like that, I don't know if the Islanders will be able to pass up on that.
I don't know. I'm gonna stick with what I've been saying. If they're close enough within reach, I don't think anybody goes. I think that they are all in on making the playoffs, and they have to be convincingly.
I mean, they can still make the playoffs without him if they're close.
Sure, but I still think that it's a situation where maybe they keep it the way it is just because, they want to have as many soldiers that are going to help as possible, not only to make the playoffs, but also through the playoffs.
I just think if they don't truly believe that they could win a cup this year, losing your best asset for nothing, unless, again, if they sign him back at a team-friendly deal and that's the plan, then yes, he should stay, of course, or they trade him and bring him back in the summer. If that's the case and he's going to come back on a team-friendly deal and he's willing to take a 3 to 4 year deal at around the same price, like we talked, I think, about it on the Space or last show, then sure. But if they don't have if there's no contract negotiations and you don't know, I feel like just letting him go is such a detriment. Letting him go for nothing is such a detriment to the long-term success. But we'll see.
We will.
CGS asks, if all injured players return and the Islanders are still playing win one, lose one, will the powers that be fire Wah or Lou or both?
I don't think Wah's getting fired. I don't know if Lou's getting fired. It comes down to butts in the seats. It comes down to what Lou decides to do at the deadline. It comes down to pretty much everything, and I think this is more a hot seat for Lou than Wah. Yes, we've talked about it as well. If Lou's not back, does a new GM want to pick their own coach? But I think Patrick's a great coach for this team. Does he have his flaws? Sure, but his energy and the emotion, especially last night, that's huge. That in theory could be the wake-up call. You send Engvall down, Wahlstrom down. Sure, the group getting healthy, but when your coach calls you out for disrespecting your goalie, like we talked about, could be the best thing for this group. And not every coach would have said that. I'm not trying to throw Lane Lambert under the bus, but after a game like that, he might say it's a sin that we lost. But he's not a goalie. He's not bad. He probably doesn't back Sorokin. He probably says we have to be better. I just think that the way Wah talks and the way just the way he coaches, I think could be a real spark. So I wouldn't think that even if they go win one, lose one, because it's clear right now that he's coaching the team he has. I don't think they're losing games because of Wah. I think it's the roster. And I'm not blaming Lou either. You have players here that know how to win these games. Same players. Martin talked about how winning at home used to be our bread and butter. Like that's not on Lou, that these guys aren't closing down 5-1 leads. So I think the fall guy wouldn't be Wah.
To play devil's advocate, it's on Lou to recognize that they're not getting it done and make the necessary moves to change that. That being said, I don't think anything happens coaching-wise or management-wise until the summer. And if Lou is no longer the general manager of the New York Islanders after this summer, it will not be a firing. That is not how it will be presented.
It's a mutually parted ways.
Yeah, he's stepping down.
His son's stepping up.
I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth. No, but I just don't think we see any sort of scenario where Lou Lamoriello was fired by the New York Islanders. Yeah. If anything, he's had his time. He's walking off into the sunset. He's done. But they will not fire him. And unless Patrick Wah just does something outlandish, which. Listen, place a bet on that.
That's probably not as crazy odds as one might think.
I don't think he's getting fired no matter what happens the rest of the season. Yeah.
Mr. Tom Boyle asks, it's obvious it's a groin injury with Varley. Do you see Hogberg playing at all?
T-Ball, you're a doctor, bro. It's obvious. I mean, I don't think it's a groin because I feel like we would have seen him tweak it in the game. I don't know what the injury is. He also backed up Sorokin for one game before not backing him up again. So if it was a groin, I don't think they would have had him sit on the bench in that situation.
Right.
But yeah, I think they're going to let Sorokin just absolutely play all these games till the new year because you look at the schedule breaks. First off, you have Chicago. He's also played back-to-backs, but you have Chicago, you have Carolina, you have almost 3 days off, Toronto, Pittsburgh, then another couple of days off. So there's a lot of time where Sorokin's going to get his rest. Maybe they do optional practices where he's not on the ice, but it's not like they have 10 games in 15 days or whatever it is. That's not even possible. But yeah, I think he's going to ride off. I don't think we see Hogberg at all.
Not unless there's just a back-to-back situation where Sorokin needs a rest, and not even necessarily. We've seen it. I think, especially like you said, with the space between these games, they're going to ride Sorokin as much as they have to.
And the way he's playing.
For sure.
I mean, this is a guy that loves playing hockey. When he's hot, you want goalies going out there, and the Islanders need these points. So we saw it last year, too. You put in Corey Schneider. You really need these points. Is it worth Sorokin going in and maybe being average to give you a better chance of winning than putting in a Schneider that's a major question mark? Hogberg, he made 12 of 12 or 13 of 13 in relief in that Seattle game.
Yeah.
He was great, but average Sorokin, Hogberg. I think the average Sorokin wins.
For sure. If you got one more, I'd go for it.
State of Survival asks, how do you see the role of analytics evolving in hockey? And how well do you think the Islanders are integrating these insights into their own game plan?
I think you could knock Lou for being old-fashioned. Every team has an analytical department. There's coaches that understand that stuff. That being said, I always look at, if the analytic doesn't back up my eye test, I'm trusting my eye test over the analytics. I think we get caught up way too much in the numbers. Also, stats. We talk about stats all the time. They mean nothing. If you're 1 for 10 in the faceoff dot, but you win the faceoff late in the game to win you the game, you were good.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Right. So, yeah, I think the Islanders are probably finding the analytics department. They just need to focus on playing their game, which is a simple game that analytics really don't matter too much.
This isn't very helpful, but I do believe I read, because there was a piece or pieces on this at some point in time, and I do believe I read that the Islanders actually have a fairly impressive analytics department. Yeah. So, again, obviously not that helpful, but I'm fairly certain that is the case. So it looks like they're, kind of at least balancing the two, where, they're going on instinct, they're going on gut, but also they have people, they have nerds in the back room running numbers too.
And so Waz a big analytics guy. So huge. And he memorizes stuff after games.
Right.
But yeah, I think they play such a simple brand of hockey right now, especially with all these guys hurt.
Yeah.
Like, the advanced numbers are great to look at, and they might help certain situations, but just go play hockey.
Go play hockey, and with that is going to do it for Questions Brewing. And now I'm going to tell you about our Patreon. That's right, folks. Go to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos, behind the scenes, merch, and partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang out with us here at Floored Media in Rockville Center, where we air the show live. It's a great way to support what we do here, so please check it on out. We actually today just posted a testimonials segment with Stefen and I, talking about some behind-the-scenes stuff, interacting with the players, some funny stories, stuff that might give you a giggle or a gaggle here and there, so definitely check that out. And with that, we can wrap this thing up. All right, folks, want to send a big thanks to Peter Baugh of The Athletic for joining us. Great spot from him. Also want to thank our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also a big thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head down to 279A Sunrise Highway for Isles games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. Also, a huge thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And a huge thanks to Tovey Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to toveyhockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off. And folks, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show if you haven't already. How dare you if you haven't, on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all those other lesser-known podcast providers that you might be using. And Stefen, where can we find you? Everywhere.
Follow me on X at Stefen_Rosner, STEFEN_ROSNER. The Hockey News Islanders, NHL.com, and the Elmonters, my Monday through Friday. Substack, theelmonters.com.
Stefen, when are you going to get over the name thing, man? I mean, listen, it's just going to happen.
It's my parents' fault, but I just got to make sure people know. I know, I should just change my name to Steve.
And I have a much more commonly spelled name, and people call me Seth all the effing time. Yes. If I had...
You look like Seth Green? Is that because you're a redhead?
That is... Don't say that. If I had a dime for every time I get an email in the office...
You have 2 dimes.
...addressing me as Seth instead of Sean, I would be a very wealthy man. So, dude, you just
that makes no sense.
Just got to let it roll off your shoulders.
No.
All right, folks, you can find me on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can also find me on Blue Sky at ShawneeHockey.something.social.something else. You can also follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. Check out the website at HockeyNightNY.com. Plenty of great stuff going on over there. So for Stefen, for Ed, for Jay, and for a missing Jake the Snake, we've been Hockey Night in New York. We will see you next week